Good morning. It's great to be here today, and thank you so much for your financial support so that we can serve around the world. We were in Mexico, now we're going to Guatemala, and we just really appreciate it. And more than anything, we need your prayers. We have some updated prayer cards, somewhat updated, the kids change all the time, but so you can take one and just remember to pray for us, because you never know when you're praying what's going on our side of the world, and we really need your prayers. So we appreciate that, and Daren's going to share more about what we're going to be doing. I guess I can introduce the kids. This is Josiah. He is almost 11. We got Nicholas here. He's 8. And Kennan's Heidi. Kennan's 5. And so this is our crew.
Cool. Well, I think Josiah's Alright, Josiah's going to sing a song for you guys. We are missionaries out of the country, but our heart is the U.S. We love this country, and our heart's the other country too. But it's kind of a tug of war, when you love your country so much, and then you leave your country to go overseas to see the gospel be reached, around the world. And so, anyway, I'm originally from Texas. I know there's a couple Texans in here. All right, and we have a thing down there called. We say y'all and fixin' to a lot, but we lived in Newport, Oregon too. But for almost we were in Oregon about 5-6 years, and so anyway, I want to sing some Southern gospel. Would you guys like that? Oh, yeah. Like just a little Southern gospel, just to kick it off. So hold on. You guys are gonna be like, man, we support these people. Yeah, I was doing so young, man. Alright. This one says, I go to the rock. Where do I go when there's no foundation stable? Who do I talk to? Nobody wants to listen. Is there a refuge in the time of tribulation? I go to the rock. I know He's able. I go to the rock. I go to the rock of my salvation. I go to the stone that the builders rejected. I run to the mountain, and the mountain stands by me. The earth all around me sinking sand. On the present solid rock I stand. When I need a shelter, when I need a friend, I go to the rock. I go to the rock of my salvation. I go to the stone that the builders rejected. I run to the mountain, and that mountain stands by me. The earth all around me sinking sand. On Christ that solid rock I stand. When I need a shelter, when I need a friend, I go to the rock. Amen. A little Southern gospel for you guys. Amen. It's funny when I preach down in Texas, we have supporters in Texas, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Kansas, lots of all over the world, and people that support us and love our family and believe in what we're doing. I have to lose an accent. I have to come up here and not speak Texan. And when I go down there, I have to speak Texans. It's a hard job, you know. And then when I go to, and then I realized that my son, Kenan, and Josiah and Nicholas, when we're in the Texas area, they learn a third language, which is Texan, you know. So we have Spanish, English, and Texan going on. And so when we come up to Oregon and we minister in Oregon, it gets all corrected, you know. So it's kind of cool. Anyway, if you have your Bibles, turn with me to Luke chapter 19. While you guys are turning to Luke 19, I just want to give you guys kind of a background of our family. We were working in Newport, Oregon. We were on the coast, and my wife was doing real estate and working in a real estate company, and then I was doing banking, and we were also working in our church, doing youth, associate pastor work, music, and we're helping a lot there. And I finally got to a point where I was making, you know, pretty good money. Everything was going great. My wife was selling real estate. Everything, I was doing good. I was at a bank in Bank of America, and our little branch in Newport, out of 2,500 branches around the U.S., was number one in lending loans. And everything was going great. Ministry, work. We had a house with the bay view. It was nice in Toledo. Just look out there and have a nice view. And I could go out and salmon fish, you know, like a quarter of a mile from the boat dock. Life was so awesomely good. And then God messed it up. You know, it's like, come on, Lord, you messed my life up here. He sent a missionary. A missionary came to the church, and I'll never forget her words. She said, the Mormons give 2 years of their lives to missions, while a lot of Christians just give excuses. And I was like, God, you must be talking to someone here today, Lord. I'm sure that word just landed in their lap, and God's like, yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm like, oh man, you know. But I didn't do anything. I was like, you know, I didn't do anything. I didn't respond that day. Those words were ringing over and over in my head. And then God, because I didn't do anything, decided, well, I'm going to have to send another missionary there. So another missionary comes to the church. He gets up, a guy by the name of Slater, Steve Slater, and he goes, who in here feels called to missions? I want you to come to the front. I went to the back. You know, like, I go to the back and God's dealing with me. I'm in the back and my heart's going like this. And I'm like, I can't go to the front, you know. And he goes, who in here feels called to missions? I want you to come to the front. Said it a second time. This little 7-year-old boy got up and walked up to the front. I was in the back, and I was like, I'm supposed to be up there. And I made my way, and I sat down right over here. I sat on the pew, and the missionary left the stage, and he came over to pray with me. And I was kind of like this, but before he could pray for me, God's presence just came over me, and I melted. And I cried, and I sat down, and gave it all that day. You know, I sang that song, I Surrender All, with my tears, with my commitment, with walking down the aisle that day, and it was just, I said, I surrender. And so here I am, you know, we packed it up. We went to 200 churches, and then we went down to Mexico, and I'll tell you guys more about that once we get into the message. And we came here, and when Pastor Skip was here, I don't know if you guys remember, yep. But anyway, we came here, and you guys blessed our socks off, and so we're excited to be back. All right, Luke chapter 19. It's talking about Jesus. It says, he entered Jericho and was passing through. And there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was small of stature. So he ran ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all grumbled, he has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, since he also is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. All right, I like that last verse. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Here's Zacchaeus. Think about it. This short man, Zacchaeus, one of the richest people in his town, in his little town that day. And he's there and he's heard the news that Jesus is going to be coming into town. And so he's caught wind of this. And he's like, man, I've heard so much about this Jesus. Think about how popular Jesus was. Jesus was going around healing people, raising people from the dead. Okay, that's going to get everybody's attention. There's a multitude of people that are following this Jesus, and they're going around and they're pressing in on him. You see the lady with the issue of blood, she's like, I got to touch him. And it's so crowded that she reaches out to touch him. Jesus was so popular when he was walking the earth, and Zacchaeus had heard about this. He's like, man, I got to get a glimpse of this Jesus. And he had physical limitations. He was short. I'm tall. I've never had that problem. But here's Jesus, or Zacchaeus, and he's like, I got to get a glimpse of him. I got to see this man that I've heard so much about. So he gets up and he climbs up into a tree. Think about it. Zacchaeus climbed up into a tree to see Jesus. He was so desperate to get a glimpse of Jesus that he climbed up a tree. And Jesus does a logical thing. He looks over there at him and says, come down from the tree, Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is like, yes, I got to. But the thing happened that day that he wasn't expecting. Zacchaeus was never expecting that Jesus would actually call his name. Think about it. The Son of God walking through the area. I mean, God incarnate. Here's Jesus and he says, Zacchaeus. He heard his name. Get down from that tree. And then he did the most unthinkable thing of that day. He said, I'm going to your house. Now, I don't know if they went and they had food, but if Jesus were walking the earth today, he'd probably go to a Mexican person's house and get good tamales, you know? Some good old tamales and enchiladas, man. Oh, wow. But Jesus called his name and said, Zacchaeus, come down. Go into your house. Now let's think about this. We're here in White City. What if we got news that Jesus was coming to town? 2013. Jesus is going to be coming to White City. And he's going to be going down the main roads here. First of all, if Jesus were walking out that way, we'd probably have parking. Come see the Son of God. This is going to be the best location to see him when he passes by. It'll be $20 a spot. You know, I don't know. What do you think? If Jesus came to town, I guarantee you the airports would be packed. They wouldn't be able to get the people in here. We would be so cram-packed around people wanting to see the Son of God. Can you imagine people from all over the world would be making pilgrimages to come out to Oregon, to White City, because they heard Jesus was going to be in town? I'm telling you, it would be crazy. We would need the military to hold the people back. And it might not still work. But if Jesus came to town, it would be crazy. But I just have a question, and this is a question of my message today, and I want to give you this question today. Whose house would Jesus go eat at if he came to White City? Whose house would he go stay at? It's a pretty powerful question, in my opinion. I think he might go to church. That's good. You know what I think? I think if Jesus came to town, he would be looking for the one person that needed him the most. We might be surprised at who Jesus actually went and saw. might be shocked. I don't think he would come to my house. First of all, I don't have one, but I don't know. But Jesus would, we see it in John chapter 4. Jesus has got his disciples around him, and he's like, hey, we're going to go through Samaria. And then, in that day and age, Samaria was like, oh man, we don't even walk on their dirt. And Jesus is like, we're going to go through Samaria. His disciples are probably thinking, man, here he goes again, wanting to go through Samaria. And Jesus is like, I choose to go against the culture of my day because there's a person at the well, a woman who's bankrupt on life, and I got to be there and I got to talk to her and give her the living water that only I can get. I was, when we went down to Mexico, I first said, my wife's a missionary kid from Colombia, and in the 90s when everything was like crazy, they're blowing up police stations and drug cartels and all that stuff. And so when we signed up for missions, I was like, Lord, I'll go anywhere but Colombia. Like I've heard about those crazy things that are going on down there. And so God, sends us to Mexico. And I'm like, it's worse. I'm like, these people are crazy down here. They're shooting people. One of the first words I learned in Spanish was balacera, which means shootout. And if you heard it, you got down. I'm thinking like, I'm in Mexico. And these people are shooting each other. One of the restaurants that I would go to, I could get coconut shrimp. Man, a nice plate of coconut shrimp for $8. This beautiful plate of coconut shrimp. One day, the owner, because he wasn't going to give $1,000 a month to the drug cartels, they came knocking on his door and said, give me the $1,000 or we're going to shut you down. What did they do? They shot up the restaurant, pulled all the employees out, shot it up. This is a sign. You're going to give us our money. He opens the restaurant back up. They do it a second time. Then finally, they don't listen and try to do it again, and they shut down the guy's restaurant because he decided he wasn't going to pay $1,000 a month in protection money. And there went my coconut shrimp, Imagine, explaining to your kids, we're not going there. Why, Dad? Well, look at all the bullet holes, Ask my kids who drove by there. Straight up. And I'm thinking, how in the world are we going to reach these people here with the gospel of Jesus Christ? How are we going to reach them? We were doing a children's outreach in a little area called Missionaries. And as we were doing this outreach, there's about 20 believers that were meeting there, and a guy named Inocencio, who's a pastor. And they were meeting in this area, and we were helping them with the children's outreach, doing puppets and all kinds of things. And all of a sudden, the Lord speaks to me and says, I want you to build a church here. This is a town of probably 400 people. There's no church in the whole city. Is not even a Catholic church or town, I guess you could say. There's nothing. And I'm like, okay. And so how am I going to build this? I was thinking to God, I was like, Lord, I don't even know the name of all the tools in English, much less Spanish, God. I'm thinking to myself, I am terrible at construction. In fact, I don't even know there's been a day of my life that I've ever done any kind of construction. And God's saying, I want you to build a church here. I'm like Moses, Moses at the burning bush, and God's like, I want you to go rescue my people. Yeah, cool, I want you to speak. Can't do that. All of a sudden the limitations are there. I don't know if you've been there. God calls on you to do something, and you look at your own talents, and you look at your own abilities, and you think, I don't have it. I've seen people in church say, man, I'll do anything with the children. Have you ever been there? I'm not helping those kids. Or the youth. Yeah, we need a youth worker. I'm like, God, I cannot do construction, Lord. I'm not even good at it. And so I'll never forget, we were out there, and God sent me some help, and we're trying to, in fact, I asked for teams to come down. Did you guys get the letter? I don't know. And no one came down. I'm like, it's Mexico. We're not going down there. We think you're crazy for being there, And so I sent the letter out. No one came down.
So we're out there, we're moving the dirt out of the way, we're getting it all ready and trying to prep the pad, to do a foundation. And all of a sudden the bulldozer gets a flag, runs over this real pointy type of stump, and boom, the tire goes out. I'm over here, man, the devil's already showed up. I'm like praying, name of Jesus, we're going to, make this work out, Lord. This is our land. We're putting a church here. You promised me a church here. Over here we had this machine that would show you where level was. It's like, I don't even know the name of it, but it's like a laser type thing, and would show you level. And I'm over there trying to figure out what's going on with the tire. And out of nowhere, I mean literally, 3 donkeys knock over the other machine. And I'm like, I was thinking to myself, 3 demon-possessed donkeys. I know it's in the Bible. Have you ever been there? It's like everything's happening. I gotta get these demon-possessed donkeys knocked over the machine, and I'm thinking, how in the world am I gonna finish this? And God kept sending us help, and we were working at it, and I was learning construction of all things. And so now there's actually a church there. In Mita Valle, Mexico. I have a picture book in the back just to prove it. It's not leaning. It's a church. Actually built good. And I'm like, why in the world would God send a church preacher, musician, / banker to go down to an area in Mexico and do construction and build a church for Jesus? And I came up with the conclusion that Jesus believes in lost causes. You guys ever heard that song by Phillips Craig and Dean? He believes in lost causes. When common sense would just give up, he believes in lost causes. He changes people with his love. There's nobody too far gone, no one beyond his reach. He believes in lost causes. And then it says, because he believed in me. And then it says, I've learned to say there's not a hopeless cause. I just look at where I once was and where I am. And when others would have given up on me and let me go my way, God kept reaching out. And that's why I can say he believes in lost causes. I don't know where you're at today. I don't know if you're depressed today, if you're down and out, if life is throwing you a whole ton of lemons and you just don't know how you're going to get through the next day even. I can tell you one thing. Jesus believes in you. He believes in you. You might be saying, man, I'm a lost cause. I'm here to tell you today, God believes in you. Amen. He believes in lost causes. Everybody got mad at Zacchaeus. Think about it. This is the guy that's robbed everybody in town. Okay, let's just think about it. What if all of a sudden the government says, we're going to start knocking on everyone's door and you're going to pay us our taxes? In America, I'm sorry, we send it off, right? You can do it electronically, H&R Block, some of you have it taken out of your paycheck. There's many ways that we do our taxes now. But what if there was a date and everyone came around collecting the taxes? They would for sure get rid of guns, it's like all these tax suckers are going around, and it's like, we need our taxes, Well, how would that make you feel? I'd feel terrible, man. I'd be like, oh, man. I just want to send it in, That's what Zacchaeus would do. Go around and collect the taxes. No one liked him in town. In fact, because he had the Roman government on his side, he would go around and he would collect taxes and say, oh, here's a little bit for me. And we'll take a little bit here. And he would defraud people. And he was Jewish. Romans would say, go collect from your people and then give us our part. And then he took his part. He just took advantage. So here's Zacchaeus, a rich man who'd gotten rich off of everybody else. Now, if you were there that day and Jesus said, Zacchaeus, come down, I want to go to your house, and you'd heard about this popular Jesus that was coming into town, it probably upset you, right? You can't believe it. Out of all the people he chose to go to this house, he goes to Zacchaeus' house? Oh, they're irritated and mad. And Zacchaeus, he does something that that day that just blows my mind, he gets up and he says, after being in Jesus' presence, he goes, I'm going to give away half of my wealth, half of my goods to the poor. And if I've defrauded anybody, I'm going to give them back fourfold. Just a moment in the presence of Jesus changed that man's heart and life. And I bet everyone was looking around like, wow. Met a guy in Mexico named Luis, a medical doctor, whose life got changed upside down. He was cheating on his wife, running around doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And his wife, Gabby, would pray and ask God to change her family situation because everything was a mess. And Luis gave his heart and life to Jesus. Gave his heart and life completely to Jesus. God healed their marriage. You know what God allowed Gabby to do? Forgive Luis. Isn't that amazing? And just brought everything back together. She started doing a Bible study. On her first Bible study for women, she had 19 women come out. And she wasn't qualified in Bible school or any of that. She just said, this is my story. This is what God's done for me, and I know He can do something for you. And she started doing a Bible study. I think a lot of times, I'm going to preach at you guys for a few minutes, but a lot of times we're sitting back and we're waiting on qualifications, and God's saying, I'm not looking for qualified people. I'm looking for people that are available, you know? I'm looking for people that have a heart and say, this is what God did. I'm not looking for qualifications. If you got them, that's great. If not, it doesn't matter. That's not what God's looking for. And so, I believe in training and all that and trying to better yourself, but there's a harvest field out there that's ready to be picked. And we need all the workers we can get, you know? And so Luis, about 5 months ago, I read on Facebook that he got up and preached for the first time. Isn't that awesome? That's transformation. That's what God does. Transforms people. So we came back from Mexico and we met with our leadership, and they asked us, my wife had just gotten her master's degree in education, worked really hard at doing that, and so they asked us if we would take over a ministry called Latin American Child Care. And it's a ministry that helps children. Every school has a church next to it. And the school is run by the church. And that school is an outreach to that community. And what the school does is it takes in children that are poor, some of the poorest of society in Guatemala. And those kids are able to get a Christian education. And so right now there's 18 schools in Guatemala, and God's allowed us to be the directors of it's called LACC, Latin American Child Care. And so we're the directors over Guatemala in these schools, and we're responsible for getting these kids their education and getting their lives changed as much as possible. And so, you guys know where Paisley, Oregon is? Paisley, it's like out in the middle of nowhere, you know. There's a church in Paisley that sent us down there. Paisley, Oregon, Assembly of God sent us on a trip in January to go to Guatemala to see what the schools that we would be actually ministering in and see the country and get an idea of all the things that we would be doing. And so we went down there. We flew down there. It was probably the most life-changing trip I've ever had. I mean, we lived in Mexico. I've seen poverty before, but I've never seen poverty like the kids in Guatemala. I've never seen poverty like this. The country went through 36 years of civil war that ended in 96. This country is so desperate for not just the gospel, but for help. These kids, a lot of them are malnourished. They don't have anything. Parents make $40 a week, and that's if they don't waste their money on alcohol. It's a depressing situation in Guatemala. I'm just giving you the facts. This country needs the gospel bad. Good time. I'm not going to lie. The Guatemalan coffee is some of the best in the world, man. It's awesome coffee. In fact, I brought back 35 pounds with me and used it as gifts, you know, and stuff. But my life has never really been changed as much as the day we went to the market. We were out at the market, And we're buying things for our table. We're buying ornaments and different articles, and we're negotiating and having a good time. And out of nowhere, this little kid walks up to me. This little kid had in one hand a rag, and then in the other hand it looked like a little kit to shine shoes with. One of the dirtiest, poorest kids I've ever seen in my life stood before me and he asked me, he said, "Can I polish your shoes? Can I polish your shoes?" And I said, "Well, how much would it be?" And he said, "Tres quetzales," and their money, that's 40 cents. This kid wanted to polish my shoes for 40 cents. See, down there, they don't always just beg. They want to try to offer something to get you to do it so they can get the money. And that money for that little boy that day was probably just enough to maybe buy him something to eat or feed his family. He's out at 10 years old of age, working the streets, offering people an opportunity to shine their shoes so he can get a little bit of money and bring it back to his family so their family can survive. And I'm sitting there, and he's like, 40 cents, and I'm like, man, you know? And I said, "Well, you can polish my shoes, polish my wife's shoes." My father-in-law was with us. I'm like, "Polish his shoes." And then this local pastor's shoes. We paid for that kid to polish all of our shoes. And then we gave him a tip. And then he went away. And then God spoke to me and he said, "If that was your boy, any one of your boys, what would you do?" Now I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, what would I do, God, if that was my boy? And then my idea is like, man, I'd work 24/7 to make sure my kid's not out on the streets. As a dad, I'm not going to have my boys on the street. I'm going to be working as hard as I can to make sure that doesn't happen. And then God spoke to me and said, in the same way that you would work for your own kids, that's the way I want you to work for the kids of Guatemala. So that's what we're doing. We're going down there and we're going to work for these kids in Guatemala like they're our own kids. And our motto is, if you can change a child, you can change a country. That's our motto. If you can change a child, you can change a country. And so we stand here before you on behalf of the country of Guatemala, on behalf of these kids, and we say, there's Christians, there's kids on the other side of the world that need the gospel of Jesus Christ. They need help. They maybe don't have all the things that we have, but man, if you guys could come down and see these precious children, it would change your life. And so I'm here to ask you, would you come down? Would you be a part, put together a missions trip? Come down, send your pastor down to Guatemala and minister for a week, and I promise you that he'll bring back coffee. You know? Amen. At least a suitcase full, you know. So we love you guys. Thank you for partnering with us. You don't know how much it means that you guys in White City would partner with the Walkers and send us to go do God's work. It means the world to us. And so we really mean it with all of our heart. I don't know. I just feel led to say, maybe, just like Zacchaeus that day, you've heard about Jesus. And I don't know in here if everyone knows Jesus. So, but think about it. You've heard about Jesus. Maybe you don't feel worthy. Maybe you don't feel like things are all together in your life or whatever. But I just want to tell you, Jesus is here. He's come to town. He wants to change your life. And so I don't know, if you don't know Jesus, let's just bow our heads out of reverence for God. And I just want to give the opportunity to anyone. If you don't know the Lord, just slip up your hand and say, hey, I want to know Jesus. Anybody here would want to know Jesus for the first time? All right. We're all saved. That's cool. That's awesome. Isn't that cool? We're all saved. Now I want to challenge you. We got to bring people in here that aren't saved, so we can get saved. Go get them right in the byways and highways. Well, we appreciate it, and God bless you guys. I'm going to pass it back to Pastor Donovan. Oh, we're going to do a video. Sorry. Yeah.
I don't honestly want to remember the time before I came to Liceo Cristiano. My mother had never gone to school and had never learned to read or write. Every Saturday night, my father came home drunk, having spent his hard-earned money on alcohol.
But a sponsor and a school changed everything. At an LACC school like this one, Beatrice learned to read and write. She learned basic hygiene. She received medical care, and she was loved. Over half the children of Latin America live below the poverty level. It is a sad, hopeless existence. Often they are drawn into a sinful lifestyle early. But for some of them, Latin America childcare and the local church offer a rare hope for the future. Today, Beatrice and her husband have a productive ministry as missionaries in Nicaragua, and they are sponsors of an LACC child. For 100,000 needy children in 20 nations of Latin America, LACC is a source of hope. Not just food, not just education, but an introduction to the one who makes an eternal difference. Still, for every child being nurtured inside an LACC school, there are many more outside looking in. Will you help open the doors of opportunity to those who are still waiting?